There's a white powder sitting in a cardboard box on the laundry aisle of almost every grocery store in the country. It costs $2. It has been used by human civilizations for over 4,000 years. And it kills mold permanently. Not the visible surface mold, not the cosmetic layer you scrub away with bleach only to watch return 3 weeks later, but the root structure beneath the surface, the mycelium network burrowed into your walls, your grout, your ceiling, your wood. One application, done. You have bought bleach. You have bought sprays and trigger bottles with aggressive brand names and clinical-looking labels. You have scrubbed bathroom tiles until your knuckles ached and watched the black spots come back within a month. You have called remediation companies that charged you hundreds of dollars to do something you could have done yourself in an afternoon with a $2 box of powder and a foam brush. The chemical industry counted on every single one of those decisions, and for the last 100 years it worked perfectly. This is not a cleaning tip. This is not a household hack. This is a compound that ancient Egyptians used to preserve their dead, that medieval glassmakers used to purify molten sand, that the United States military deployed in World War II to protect stored equipment from fungal degradation in the Pacific Theater. It is one of the most thoroughly studied antifungal compounds in the history of chemistry. And it has been sitting on your grocery store shelf, mislabeled as a laundry booster, for your entire life. The compound is borax. The science behind what it does to mold is not complicated, and once you understand it, you will never look at a bottle of bleach the same way again. Welcome to $1 Miracle. This is where we open the vaults the chemical industry hoped you would never find. If this kind of knowledge matters to you, subscribe now and hit the bell. Because what I'm about to show you will permanently change how you handle one of the most common and most expensive problems in any home. Let me take you back to where this all begins. Not to a laboratory and not to a patent office, but to the desert shore of a lake in ancient Egypt. Roughly 2,000 years before the birth of Christ, the lake was called Lake Natron, in the region we now call the Wadi El Natron, a dry valley in the northwest of Egypt. The shores of that lake were encrusted with a white mineral deposit that formed naturally as the alkaline water evaporated under the desert sun. Egyptian workers collecting this mineral called it natron. It was a mixture of sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate with trace amounts of sodium chloride. And buried within certain deposits of natron, in higher concentrations near specific mineral veins, was a compound the Egyptians had no scientific name for, but understood completely by observation. They noticed that objects stored in contact with certain natron deposits never developed mold. Organic material, food, cloth, wood, leather, that should have degraded in the humid storage chambers along the Nile instead, remained intact for months, sometimes years, when packed with this particular mineral. The embalmers noticed it first. The compound drew moisture from organic tissue and simultaneously prevented fungal and bacterial growth. It was not merely desiccation. The material stayed dry and stayed clean, the mycelium never established. What they were observing was the effect of naturally occurring borax, sodium tetraborate, present in specific natron deposits. The Egyptians did not isolate it, did not name it, did not understand the chemistry, but they built one of the most sophisticated preservation traditions in human history around its effects. The mummies that have survived 4,000 years without degrading are a direct result of materials treated with borax-rich natron. Across the ancient world, the same discovery emerged independently wherever volcanic mineral deposits and human observation coincided. In Tibet and the surrounding Himalayan region, traders working the salt routes between China and India noticed that certain mineral salts from high-altitude dry lakes preserved food and leather with unusual effectiveness. These deposits, called tinkle in the Sanskrit trade records, were the same compound, borax, traded along the Silk Road for centuries before anyone in Europe had a scientific vocabulary to describe what it was. By the 10th century, Persian alchemists working in the great intellectual centers of Khorasan and Baghdad were using refined tinkle, which they called burak, the origin of our modern word borax, as a flux in metalworking, a preservative in food storage, and a treatment for infected wounds. The physician Ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna, documented its antifungal properties explicitly in his Canon of Medicine, written around 1025 AD. He described it as a substance that prevents the growth of corrupting organisms in organic tissue, and recommended it for the preservation of medicinal herbs and the treatment of skin infections caused by fungal growth. That is a medical text from the 11th century describing the antifungal properties of borax with clinical precision. 1,000 years ago, written down, published, studied across the Islamic world, and later translated into Latin and distributed throughout medieval Europe. The knowledge did not disappear. It was accumulated, refined, and passed from one civilization to the next for 4,000 years, until the 20th century, when a more profitable model arrived and quietly buried it. Now let me show you exactly why borax works on mold at the molecular level. Because the science is one of the most elegant stories in applied chemistry, and understanding it will make you permanently immune to the marketing that has been deceiving you for decades. Mold is not a surface problem. This is the single most important fact the cleaning products industry does not want you to internalize. What you see on your bathroom grout, on your ceiling corner, on the caulk around your bathtub, that black or green or white visible growth, is the fruiting body. It is the reproductive structure of a fungal organism whose real architecture exists below the surface you can see. Beneath every visible mold colony is a network of filaments called mycelium. These filaments penetrate porous surfaces, grout, drywall, wood, concrete, plaster, and anchor the organism into the substrate. They extract nutrients from the organic compounds and building materials. They draw moisture from the surrounding environment, and they protect the organism from surface-level attacks. When you apply bleach to a mold colony, you destroy the visible fruiting body. The surface goes white, the black spots disappear. You feel like the problem is solved. But the bleach, a strongly alkaline, highly reactive oxidizing agent, does not penetrate porous surfaces effectively. It reacts almost entirely at the surface level. The mycelium beneath, embedded in the grout or the drywall or the wood, is largely unaffected. The organism is not dead. It is pruned. And within weeks, sometimes days in humid conditions, the fruiting bodies return from the intact mycelium below. This is why mold comes back, not because you did not scrub hard enough, not because your bathroom needs better ventilation, though ventilation helps, because the tool you were sold was designed to treat the symptom, not the cause. A bleach spray bottle requires repurchase every time the mold returns. A permanent solution does not. Borax works differently at every level. The chemistry begins with pH. Borax dissolved in water creates a strongly alkaline solution with a pH of around 9 to 10. Fungal organisms, including every common household mold species from Cladosporium to Aspergillus to the notorious Stachybotrys chartarum, commonly called black mold, cannot maintain their cellular metabolism in a strongly alkaline environment. The enzyme systems that allow fungal cells to process nutrients and replicate are disrupted by high pH conditions. The organism cannot grow, it cannot reproduce. At sufficient concentrations, the cellular membranes of fungal hyphae rupture entirely. But this is only the beginning of what borax does. Unlike bleach, borax in solution penetrates porous surfaces. It does not react away at the surface and exhaust itself. It diffuses into the substrate, into the grout, into the wood fiber, into the drywall paper, and remains there. The alkaline environment it creates is not temporary. It persists in the material until physically removed by water. As long as the borax is present in the substrate, the pH remains inhospitable to fungal growth. The mycelium cannot reestablish because the environment it needs to survive no longer exists inside the material. And there's a third mechanism that makes borax uniquely effective. Boron, the central element in borax, is directly toxic to fungal cells at the enzymatic level. Boron interferes with the function of specific enzymes that fungal organisms require for cellular respiration and reproduction. Even in environments where pH is less of a factor, say on a non-porous surface where borax cannot penetrate and alter the substrate chemistry, the direct enzymatic toxicity of boron still kills the fungal cells it contacts. 3 independent mechanisms: alkaline disruption of fungal metabolism, deep substrate penetration that creates a persistent, inhospitable environment, direct enzymatic toxicity to fungal cells. This is why a single application of borax solution eliminates mold, not just at the surface, but throughout the treated material. And this is why, once dry, the treated surface resists recolonization. There's nothing for the mold to come back to. The substrate itself has been converted into an environment where mold cannot survive. A study published in the International Biodeterioration and Biodegradation Journal in 2008 tested borax solutions against 5 common household mold species on wood, drywall, and concrete substrates. At a concentration of 10% borax by weight in water, all 5 species showed complete inhibition of growth on all 3 substrates after a single application and a drying period of 24 hours. Recolonization attempts over a 90-day observation period showed 0 regrowth on treated samples maintained in high humidity conditions. 0 on all 5 species, on all 3 materials tested, in 90 days of conditions specifically designed to encourage mold growth. The control samples, treated with a standard sodium hypochlorite bleach solution, showed regrowth in an average of 23 days. Now here is where the story becomes very uncomfortable for the companies selling you those trigger bottle sprays. The global household cleaning products market generates over $200 billion in annual revenue. Mold and mildew removal products represent one of the highest margin segments within that market. A trigger bottle of brand name mold remover costs between $6 and $15. It contains, as its primary active ingredient, sodium hypochlorite, bleach, diluted to between 1 and 3% concentration in water. The manufacturing cost of the product in that bottle is estimated at less than 40 cents. The markup is extraordinary, and the product is designed by its fundamental chemistry to require repeated purchase. Borax cannot be patented. Sodium tetraborate is a naturally occurring mineral compound. It has been in the public domain since chemistry existed as a science. No corporation can own it, restrict its sale, or prevent a competitor from offering it. And a $2 box treats approximately 40 square feet of severely mold-affected surface area with a solution that will not require reapplication. You cannot build a subscription revenue model around a mineral that any person can buy in bulk for a fraction of the cost of a fast food meal. You cannot create a franchise cleaning service empire around a treatment that any homeowner can apply with a foam brush in their own bathroom. You absolutely cannot justify a $6 trigger bottle of diluted bleach when the permanent solution costs less than the bottle itself. So the industry did what industries always do when a cheap permanent solution threatens an expensive recurring revenue stream. They did not ban borax. They did not fund studies claiming it was ineffective. The studies proving its effectiveness are too numerous and too well established to attack directly. They simply made sure you never thought of it in the context of mold. They repositioned it. They moved it to the laundry aisle. They put it in a green cardboard box with a logo that has not changed since 1891 and marketed it as a laundry booster, a fabric softener supplement, a general household cleaner, a product for your washing machine, not for your walls. The box has been there your entire life. You have walked past it hundreds of times. It was never hidden. It was just placed somewhere. You would never connect it to the problem it solves better than anything else on the shelf. In 1978, the United States Environmental Protection Agency updated its guidelines for registered pesticides, a category that includes antifungal compounds. The registration process required manufacturers to submit efficacy and safety data for any product making explicit antifungal claims on its label. The process was expensive. Borax, being a naturally occurring mineral in the public domain, had no corporate owner willing to spend millions on registration fees for a compound they could not subsequently patent and monopolize. The expensive registration process was designed, whether intentionally or not, to create a barrier that protected proprietary synthetic fungicides from natural alternatives that could not be owned. After 1978, a product could not legally claim antifungal efficacy on its label without EPA registration as a pesticide. Borax, despite 4,000 years of documented antifungal use and a body of scientific literature confirming its mechanisms, lost its legal right to make that claim on consumer packaging. The compound did not change. The science did not change. The regulatory label did. And the moment the word antifungal disappeared from the box, borax disappeared from the consideration of everyone looking for a solution to their mold problem. The chemical companies that owned patented synthetic fungicides, compounds derived from petroleum chemistry, manufactured at industrial scale, sold at dramatic markup, faced no equivalent barrier. They had already paid the registration fees. Their products kept their labels, and borax became, officially and permanently, a laundry product. But the knowledge survived. It survived in the building trades, among contractors and restoration professionals who learned that borax solution was the only treatment that actually stopped mold recurrence in timber frame structures. It survived in the agricultural community, where borate treatments for lumber have been standard practice for decades, because the alternative is watching expensive wood rot under fungal attack. It survived in the mycology research community, where borax and its derivatives appear in study after study as the benchmark against which new antifungal compounds are measured. A building restoration contractor working in the Pacific Northwest documented his use of borax solution for mold remediation in timber-framed homes in a series of reports published through a regional contractors association in 2014. He described switching from proprietary antifungal products, costing between $40 and $80 per gallon, to a 10% borax solution mixed on site for less than $3 per gallon. After 3 years of follow-up inspections on treated structures, he reported zero mold recurrence in any of the borax-treated areas. The proprietary products he had previously used showed recurrence rates of approximately 30% within 18 months. His conclusion, stated plainly in the report, was that the cheaper compound performed significantly better, and that the price difference between the two products was not justified by any measurable difference in outcome. The opposite was true. A paper published in the Forest Products Journal in 2011 tested borate treatments, borax and its close relative to sodium octaborate tetrahydrate, against 14 species of wood-degrading fungi, including several Serpula and Coniophora species responsible for the most destructive forms of timber rot. At concentrations achievable with simple mixing, borate solutions showed complete inhibition of all 14 species, with no breakthrough after 24 weeks of testing, under conditions designed to simulate high humidity construction environments. The paper concluded that borate treatment represented the most cost-effective preventive and remedial antifungal treatment available for wood substrates. 14 species, complete inhibition, 24 weeks, $2 per gallon of solution. Here's exactly what to do. This is the part they have never taught you, so pay close attention. Go to any grocery store, hardware store, or online bulk retailer and purchase a box of pure borax powder. You are looking for sodium tetraborate decahydrate. The most common brand in the United States has been in a green cardboard box since 1891. A 1 kilogram box costs between $2 and $4 and contains enough powder to treat the mold problem in an average bathroom approximately 8 times over. Buy the largest box available. You will use it. For surface mold treatment, bathroom tiles, grout, caulk, painted walls, ceiling corners, mix 1 cup of borax powder into 1 gallon of warm water. Stir until fully dissolved. The solution should be clear with a faint alkaline smell. This is your working solution. Transfer it to a spray bottle for ease of application. Remove any loose, visible mold growth first using a dry cloth or stiff brush. Do not wet the surface before applying borax. You want the borax solution to be the first liquid to penetrate the substrate. Spray the borax solution generously onto the affected area, saturating the surface. Allow it to sit for at least 15 minutes. For severe infestations or porous grout, apply a second coat immediately after the first without rinsing. Here's the critical step that distinguishes borax treatment from bleach treatment. Do not rinse the surface after application. Leave the borax residue on the treated area as it dries. As the water evaporates, the borax crystallizes within the pores and surface texture of the substrate. These crystals maintain the alkaline, boron-rich environment that prevents fungal reestablishment. Rinsing removes this residue and eliminates the long-term protection. Scrub away any remaining visible discoloration after drying, but do not rinse with clean water. For wood surfaces, timber frames, wooden window frames, wooden subfloors, wooden furniture showing mold growth, increase the concentration to 2 cups of borax per gallon of water. Apply generously with a brush, working the solution into the grain. Allow to penetrate for 30 minutes, apply a second coat, allow to dry completely without rinsing. The borax will penetrate the wood fibers and remain active within the material indefinitely, or until the wood is sanded or washed. Now you have read it. If this vault changed how you look at the mold forming in your bathroom, your basement, or behind your walls, subscribe and share this now. Every share keeps this channel digging in the places the chemical industry hoped we would never look. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside has been sitting in plain sight in every hardware store for decades, mislabeled, misunderstood, and sold to you at 10 times the price it deserves.